if you know the chart we have here at our ministry, we have them laminated for placemats if you'd like to get a bunch. But this is the same thing on different color code. The Bible teaches before the flood came, the people lived to be 900 years old. After the flood, this line right here, something changed, and we cover all that on video number 2. And then you start off with, Noah had a son, Shem, Ham, Japheth. Shem had a son, and it goes on. You get down here to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. These are the 3 key Bible characters right in here. Abraham, oh, no, that's the wrong button. Let's see, button, who's got the, no, click here, and then here. Oh, wrong. This one, okay, got it. I'll get it eventually. So, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then Jacob has 12 kids. One of them is Joseph, and the brothers sold him to be a slave down in Egypt. Now, Joseph is the last guy in the Bible for which the dates are given of how old they were, when their kids were born, and it quits at that. So we don't know after Joseph the exact dates, but we do know Joseph was the vice pharaoh of Egypt, and most their secular history from here on. So this would be about 600 years after the flood is when Joseph lived. So the population of the earth would have been, I don't know, how many people could they have in 600 years? America grew from 2 million to 300 million in 200 years. So you're going to have a lot. Anyway, we don't know what it was, but a lot of the world was still not even explored at this time. A couple hundred years after the flood, huge parts of the world, there was nobody living there. So just remember, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then the 12 tribes. And one of those 12 boys was Joseph. Right here, Joseph. Focused on your son. Come on. There, okay, focused again. Wow, I got it. So Jacob had 4 wives, and the wife Rachel had Joseph and Benjamin, and Joseph is going to have Ephraim and Manasseh here in a minute. So Joseph has just been dragged 500 or 600 miles down to Egypt. He followed his dad's instructions, went up to see how the brothers were doing in Dothan. They sold him to be a slave, and he had to walk probably in chains or tied up or something all the way down to Egypt. So Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites. Remember, Ishmael was Abraham's other son. So these guys are all cousins in here, and mean to each other, which had brought him down thither. So he probably walked 500-600 miles, I don't know exact distance, in handcuffs or chains or whatever they did, tied him up, walked down there, and then he was sold on the slave market. That's got to be humiliating. Have them come up and look at your teeth and see, how healthy you are, and check you over, and then see how much they're going to offer for this new slave. He's got to be wondering, who's going to buy me? I hope it's somebody got a little bit of conscience and is, mercy and is nice instead of, you never know. What am I going to get here? And you don't have any choice in it at all. There will be times in your life when things happen to you that you have absolutely no control over. Nothing you can do. But it happens anyway. You'll be there. If you haven't happened yet, it's coming, okay? The Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man. Now keep in mind, he's been dragged away from his family. He's 17 years old. He's now a servant to Potiphar, and he was a prosperous man. He was in the house of his master, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. Why would he work hard for somebody he's a slave to? Why not do the minimum? I faced this same thing when I was in prison for nearly 9 years. They put me in, everybody had to get a job, every prison they moved me to, after a couple of weeks, they'd call me in, it's interview time, it's okay, where do you want to work? I'd say, well, I taught school 15 years, I have a PhD in education, I'd like to work in education. And they put me in the kitchen, doing pots and pans, almost every time. And I know nothing about cooking and don't want to learn. But Lady Di does such a great job, we'll just let her do it. But he was a prosperous man. You will probably have times in your life where you are working for somebody or living with somebody that really is not a good relationship, but you do your best anyway. We saw that with Abigail, godly woman married to a curlish, brutish, evil man named Nabal. You read the story in 1 Samuel. David watched over his sheep, and it's a long story there in 1 Samuel, but just Google Nabal, N-A-B-A-L. Here's Abigail, beautiful woman, submissive to an evil man. That's why the Bible says clearly 3 times at least, Ephesians 5, Colossians 3, 1 Peter 3, wives, submit to your husbands. Yeah, but he's mean to me. That's what it says. I didn't write the book. But he was submissive and obedient and made his boss prosperous. If you're working for a company, if you're working for McDonald's and they're paying you $8 an hour, you've got to be making them at least $15 an hour just to break even, because they got to pay all kinds of other stuff. You should look at this and say, am I prosperous? Is this place I'm working prospering because of me? If it is, be glad. That's the way it's supposed to be. If you work for somebody, you try to make them prosperous. That's what he did. Daniel had the same problem with Nebuchadnezzar. I mean, he was hauled off as a teenager and made a eunuch, look that up, and then had to work for this guy for 70 years in Babylon for a heathen king. And God prospered him because he did his best. You just do your best wherever you are. When I was in prison, I tried to work hard, whatever job they gave me. Didn't like it, didn't want to do it, but I smiled and did my job. And I tried to use that time wisely. Wrote 37 books, earned 2 more doctorates, 1 more master's, and worked hard. Led 800 men to the Lord and did Bible study 4 times a day in my cell, in my room, and read, which was 1,800 books. A great place to read. So the Lord prospered him. He was a prosperous man. Some people will bloom wherever they're planted. Doesn't matter. You plant them on the rocks, they'll bloom. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer of all his house, and all that he had he put into his hands. So he made Joseph in charge of the whole place. Potiphar did. And it came to pass from the time that he made him overseer in the house, and over all that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. You know, brother, if you've got a bunch of godly people working for you at the college there, the college can prosper because of your godly influence. One Christian person in a heathen environment can bring God's blessing. What America needs is a bunch of Christians to do their job, and God can bless America. We sing, God bless America, and God looks down and says, I wish I could, but I can't. You keep asking me to bless you. How about do the things I told you, and then I'll bless you? Duh. Read the book. Okay, do what it says. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had save the bread, which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well-favored, handsome, strong, well-built fellow. And it came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph. And she said, come lie with me. She'd been watching him. Handsome fellow, strong, intelligent, hard worker. I want him. This is his boss's wife. Okay? But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, behold, my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he hath committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against Potiphar? Isn't that what he said? Nope. It would be a sin against Potiphar, and it would be a sin against the wife, but this is a sin against God. Sometimes you don't do things just because God is watching. Like the fellow took his little boy out in the watermelon patch to steal watermelons. He says, here, son, here's how you steal watermelons. And they snuck over the fence, and he looks to the right, looks to the left, looks ahead, turns around, looks behind, gets ready to steal the watermelon. The little boy taps him and says, Dad, you forgot to look up. Yeah, you forgot to look up. That one's always watching, okay. Sin against God. And it came to pass, as she spake to Joseph day by day, that he hearkened not unto her to lie by her or to be with her. Keep in mind, he's probably early 20s. Probably hormones running like crazy. This is going to be a very difficult temptation for any young man, especially when you got the boss's wife trying to seduce you every day, over and over and over, and he wouldn't relent. And it came to pass about this time that Joseph went into the house to do his business, and there was none other of the men of the house there within. And she caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and fled and got him out. She said, come here, grabbed his clothes. He left the clothes in her hand and took off running. My mom always said, son, if a girl ever asks you out, leave. Think about that. Okay. And it came to pass, when she saw that he had left his garment in her hand, and was fled forth, that she called unto the men of her house, and spake to them, saying, See, he hath brought an Hebrew unto us to mock us. He came in to me to lie with me, and I cried with a loud voice. Of course, she is lying through her lips, making up a wild story, trying to blame it on him. And it came to pass, when he heard that I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. So she's telling all the servants this. Now, he's the boss of all the servants. So she's reporting their boss to them, going around the chain of command. Not good. And she laid up his garment by her until his Lord came home. And she spake unto him according to these words. She's already practiced the story once, you know. The Hebrew servant which thou, blame him, which thou hast brought unto us, this is really your fault, Potiphar, came in unto me to mock me. And it came to pass, as I lifted up my voice and cried, that he left his garment with me and fled and got him out. Boo-hoo-hoo. Oh, honey, please rescue me. This servant that you brought in tried to rape me. Here's his clothes for proof. She's got the story all laid out. You know, when somebody wants to frame you, they can do it. Like they did with me with my whole case to put me in prison. That was a frame job from the beginning. Watch KentHovinIsInnocent.com. There was no crime committed on my part, a bunch of crimes on their part. But people in powerful positions are used to getting their way, and they can frame somebody, and it doesn't seem to bother them. Throw them in prison, let them rot for years, doesn't seem to bother them. Yet, the Lord hasn't spoken. It's not over yet. Wait till Judgment Day. And it came to pass, when his master heard the words of his wife, which he spake unto him, saying, After this manner did thy servant to me, that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison. Now, hold on a minute. I happen to have an opinion on this. I think he didn't believe his wife. If he really would have believed the story his wife was telling, what would he have done to Joseph? He'd have killed him, right? Instead, he throws him in prison. He's probably pretending like he's mad. He probably knew that woman well enough to think, oh, brother, here we go. What am I going to do? I got to live with this one the rest of my life, so, okay, honey, I'll throw him in prison, you know. Well, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in the prison, but the Lord was with Joseph. And he showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. You know, even in prison, God can be with you and show you favor. I've been there, done that, seen it happen. It's amazing. I learned how to live out of a shoebox, brother, for nearly 9 years. And God was good. Always had what I needed. It was amazing watching God supply. It's coming again. That movie we watched, where's that movie, brother? Can you grab that? Has the movie been out for a while? I've never seen it before, but Six?
Seems like the 90s, late 90s
I've
maybe?
seen it.
Late 90s?
I'm not sure.
Where have I been all my life? Six, The Mark Unleashed. One of the Baldwin brothers. I don't know who they are, but
Stephen Baldwin.
Stephen Baldwin. Anyway, excellent. We watched it last night. Now, they talk about the mark of the beast going on the hand. It should be in the hand. Before you do a movie about the Bible, get a King James Bible, for heaven's sake. These other ones have some real serious flaws, but it was, I think, well done about what probably is coming soon with the Christians being persecuted and killed, probably starting real soon. I'll be surprised if it doesn't start in the next 2 or 3 years here in America. I'm not predicting it will, but I'm thinking I'll be real surprised if it doesn't. We're headed for disaster. So he was put in the prison, and even in prison he rose to the top. You know, cream always rises to the top. It just does. You got problems and trials, you just stay faithful and serve God, and God will take care of it. You'll go right to the top. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him. And that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. Joseph is one of the few guys in the Bible about which nothing bad is said that I can find any place. Jesus, Daniel, hang on, focus. There's a couple others, but nothing bad is said about this guy. Job, twice God told the devil that Job was a perfect man. That's quite a testimony when God says, that guy's perfect. Wow. What's he say about you? I don't know. But Joseph here, great guy. Sometimes really, really bad things happen to really, really good people. And sometimes it seems like the harder you try to serve the Lord and do what's right, the more things happen. You say, what's going on here? Now, rather than just give up and say, I'm not serving God because he doesn't bless, we look at what blessings are. We look at it all wrong. We think not having any troubles or trials and having all of our bills paid and having money in the bank and having security, that's God's blessing. I'd rather be dead busted broke and right smack in the middle of God's will. One of his prophets named Elijah had to run away from the king, and he's hiding out by a brook. He doesn't have a job, no income, no money, no food. And didn't God provide for him way out there somehow? The ravens came and fed him. The raven. We had those up in New Hampshire when I was in prison up there. That's like a huge crow. I mean, gigantic, twice the size of a crow. Got to be the greediest bird in the world. They're bringing him food. Yeah, right. Okay, sure. God can supply for you. Just stay right smack in the middle of his will. And don't run away from God's will for fear of lack of funding. Say, God, you told me to do this, so let's go. God will provide. So God made everything he did to prosper. That was Joseph. We'll get into chapter 40 tomorrow.